Welcome to the ADHD Women and Business Show. I'm Lana,
And I'm Becky.
and in true ADHD fashion, we are the latecomers to the party. Both of us run successful businesses, and we are exploring how ADHD is probably our superpower. Now, we can't be the only ones on this journey, and you are more than welcome to join us as we discover more about ADHD, women, and business. Remember, we are experts in our own experiences, not ADHD experts. I help women in business to implement the right tech at the right time. And Becky helps you to have sales conversations with ease, not sleaze. We don't have all the answers on ADHD, which is why we're sharing our thoughts and discoveries with you. We're delighted to have a guest with us this week. So, Becky, would you like to do the honours and introduce her?
Absolutely. Welcome to Jennifer McFarland. Now, her business is Monarch Dawn, and Jen works with women who know or wonder if they're rocking with ADHD. And she helps them create a personalised system so that they can finish what they start. So, I am delighted that we'll be talking about goal setting today, unless we go off on
Yes.
tangents or whatever. Um, but before we get into the detail, Jennifer, tell me, what's your story? How did you end up doing what you do?
Well, first of all, thank you for both of you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. I sort of started my journey with ADHD by having my younger son diagnosed. So that kind
Yes.
of put it on the radar for the family, and so I was always doing research and looking at ways to support him. And at one point, I was going to a counselor, and I mentioned that I think I might have ADHD, and he's like, okay. So he whipped out a one-page like 10 questionnaire.
Yeah.
And I answered it and he goes, oh yeah, I think you do. I'm like, yeah, well,
Wow.
but at the time, there was not good research for women.
No.
And so he kind of just went, oh, I guess you're okay. You seem to be doing all right. There's nothing to do for you. But I wasn't doing all right
Yeah.
because I was really frustrated that I could not finish the things that I started or the goals that I set for myself and
Mm.
all the advice I got was, well, just make a decision and then you do
Yes.
it. And I'm like, well, I don't, and I don't know why. So I did some study and put together this process for myself
Mm.
before I really recognized or acknowledged that ADHD was the reason I needed the system.
Yeah.
But it allowed me to make a decision and create consistent action so I could actually finish that goal and get where
Awesome.
I wanted to go. So I did things like change my eating habits. I started exercising at one point, and because ADHD likes to take things extreme, the trainer I was working with at the gym said, "Hey, I think you could do a triathlon."
Wow.
Mm.
And I said, "I don't think you're right." She's, "Well, let's just try." So yeah, I trained for it and finished triathlon twice. The first year I was dead last. I was literally the last person, but I finished it.
Mm.
This is it. It's doing it, isn't it? It's not you with something like that, your biggest competition is yourself, not anyone else. It's whether you can
Mhm.
improve, and actually improving on never doing one to doing one is amazing.
Yeah, the next year I was not last. I wasn't first, but I wasn't last, and I was able to exercise consistently, for that year and a half time because I knew how to support myself to follow through on those goals and decisions, which I didn't know before. So to wrap it up quick, I started on teaching this system online, and I was working with a business coach, and I was like, this is really hard. I'm really struggling. Uh, and what had happened was I had quit drinking caffeine. I had been self-medicating with caffeine my whole life, and I
Yes.
just quit. Not even for any reason. I had been drinking iced tea. I was tired of it, so I switched to sparkling water. And all of a sudden I couldn't think straight anymore. And so
Wow.
I was on Facebook looking for business support, and I found an ADHD entrepreneurial women's group, and I went, "Oh, that's right. I have ADHD." So I went and got assessed,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh yeah, you do." But now there's a better understanding, and so there's more, there's more options for support.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
like this. I like to the pills and skills method. So I take the non-stimulant medication and I use my system. So they work really nice together.
So
Brilliant.
can I ask you, did your system evolve prior to you joining the gym and having that sort of coaching to achieve the triathlon, or was it a kind of it evolved as you gained more knowledge around your experience in ADHD and recognizing some of the things that you were doing to kind of keep you clear focused?
Yeah, I did the study. I kind of I grabbed everything I could find on habits, willpower, mindset, goal setting, like everything I could find, and and I sort of grabbed out and curated a few different concepts that made sense to me, and so I stitched them all together and then tried it out. So the first thing I did was quit drinking pop, and I did that over about 6 months. And then I was like, okay, that worked. Let me apply it towards exercise. So that's got me in the gym on a regular basis, enough to start talking with a trainer who was like, oh, you're here all the time. Let's take it up a notch. So all of that was done because I was focused on handling the symptoms that I was
Yeah.
dealing with from ADHD, but not really recognizing it was a support system for ADHD until later. Um, and and once I put the pieces together, I'm like, oh, this could be great for other people. It works for anybody. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to have ADHD or a diagnosis or anything in order for it to be helpful, but it's extra helpful if you have any kind of neurodivergence, because it finds all your different places where you need support and creates support in those places, and then finds the places where you are really strong, and and the whole point is to make that change as easy as possible. So you support the spots where you have a hard time, but you play to your strengths so that it is something that you enjoy doing and is a little bit easier.
That's
I think actually
amazing.
putting those sort of coping mechanisms in place is something that we've probably all done throughout our lives, but haven't always recognized that that's what they are. And I love the fact that actually you've been self-reflective and been able to recognize that, okay, I've put something in place that actually I can use for other things as well. I think yeah, I haven't always given myself credit for the things that I do, or I've just thought I was weird, you know,
Mm.
like, well, I must be the only one who, you know, has to, yeah, clean their teeth first thing, otherwise they forget, or do this or do that, you know. Keep a little spare toothbrush and a mouth spray in my bag because very occasionally I'll walk out the door and I've forgotten to clean my teeth even. So yeah, yes,
Yeah. And
cool.
one of the things that is really great specifically for ADHD goal setting is having a really flexible plan.
Yes.
So I had this very concrete idea in my head of what it meant to be consistent. Like, I had to do the same thing every day at the same time. And that just really wasn't sustainable. So in the trial and error portion, I went, okay, there are days that I just have no energy. And so for my goals for my goals, I have this range. I have the bare minimum of the action that I want to take in order to keep making progress. And then I have a mid-range, and then I have an optimal. So if I wake up and I'm like roaring to go and I've got a bunch of energy and focus, then I can do the optimum part of that plan. If I wake up late or there's something weird in my schedule, I'm not feeling well, whatever, I can do my bare minimum. I'm still making progress on my goal. I'm still wiring in that connection for that action and making progress, even if it's not the same amount of progress every day. And I think acknowledging and appreciating and planning for our variable energy makes a huge difference, and especially as women.
Yes.
ADHD and the hormones that women deal with are incredibly interconnected. So there are women who take stimulant meds are just like, hey, there's a week every month that they don't work for me, and that's because the hormone levels are so different from week to week. So having a goal that can flex with that as well, not only are you getting stuff done, but you're not beating yourself up about the process. Like, oh, I wasn't perfect. Well, this isn't about perfection. This is about you getting what you want out of your life and accomplishing the things that are important to you.
So have you created this system? Is it a paper, digital? Is this something that people can access? Because I think it's sometimes we all know about goals. We all understand the process of goals. And goodness, there are so many organizing planners out there. And I know from my own experience, I'm great with a planner for a fortnight, and then I get fed up and bored. And then I forget to fill it in. And then it might be another 3 or 4 months before I suddenly rediscover it and get enthused again. So how do you create that that system to enable people to retain that consistency?
So the part of the course is planning on playing to your strengths. So you take some time to look at ways that you've already been successful and what were the different components that went into that success, so that you can copy that for everything that you want to do from now on. So you take a look at, do I work best independently or with 1 to 2 people or in a big group? Do I work best self-taught? Can I go to the library and with my library card, I can get every bit of the information, or, YouTube or Google? Or do I really do better in an environment where there's a classroom and a teacher and I can do interaction? And so once you kind of look at your successes, I usually say 3 to 5, and distill all those components out, then when you build your plan to set your goals, you have all those things in mind in order to do those things. So you would find, like, oh, would it be good for me to have an accountability buddy for my, for using my planner? With ADHD especially, one of the biggest problems we have is if it's not visible, it doesn't exist.
Yes.
So what we do is we pile something on top of the planner, or we put it away to be tidy, and then we forget that it exists. So
I don't show you my pile that's off camera on my left. I'm not even going to go there.
Mine's just there too.
Yeah. I say I don't have a filing system. I have a piling system.
Yeah. But you know what? If somebody asks me whether I can find something, I know that I might have multiple piles, but I know which pile it's in, weirdly. My head can tell me that. But I couldn't tell you if somebody said what's in that pile. I couldn't tell you. But if somebody said, where is so-and-so, I'd know.
Yeah.
Very odd. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun when, especially when my kids were growing up, they'd say, "Mom, where's so and so? What, where's this thing?" And I'd think about it for a second, like, well, I think it's in the basement, in this cupboard under this pile of stuff. You got a visual memory, but if you can't see it, it's really hard to remember where it's at. So, and that's another reason why having awareness of ADHD is really important. So if you were to go to get a professional organizer to come into your house and say, help me organize this and build the system so that I can, and appreciate the space that I have and find the stuff that I need. If you don't know you're dealing with ADHD, you will probably organize it in a way that is not compatible with the easiest way for you to use them. Things need to be visible. Things need to be easily accessible. If you're, you know, if you're organizing things, clear bins are great because then you can just pick it up and kind of look at it and it doesn't disappear. Open shelving and just making it so that it's easy for you to see when you need to see it. I have like my calendars are tacked up on my wall and I have 2 calendars and Google on my, Google calendars on my phone. And I give myself multiple places where I'm going to see it to help remember where things are at and what what I need to do. So, knowing you're dealing with ADHD helps you organize things and set your goals in a way that will work for you and not just what would work for the other 90% of the people.
No, absolutely. I love this idea of actually playing to your strengths, but actually diving into what are they? I don't think I've ever sat and considered them. I've actually been working with a strengths-based ADHD coach myself. So actually it's something I've started to do through her. But actually before then, I certainly still wouldn't have thought of what have been my successes, where have I achieved things, what were the similarities in those circumstances that I can now use for my future success. I haven't made that connection at all. So this is fascinating. Thank you.
I got that out of the book Switch by Dan and Chip Heath.
Okay, thank you.
So they break down the whole concept and essentially the answer to your problems aren't in your problems.
No.
So you have to go to your successes. You have to go to the things that you've done well and accomplished in order to find the strengths, in order to find the answers to the problems. So that was a mind-blowing one. When I read that one, I was just like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Why didn't I, why have I always been looking at the problem and then you just get spun around, stuck looking at the problem instead of finding ways that that you can solve it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So once you've ascertained, I suppose, your minimum action, do you, because I still find that I get quite overwhelmed with tasks, I suppose, but I know that I actually don't break them down enough for myself. So are these quite tightly broken down, or how does that bit work to allow people then to achieve their goals?
Yeah, I really recommend that you break it down into steps that you would probably feel comfortable taking 2 at a time.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's
yeah.
really well broken down. And if you have a big goal, then you're going to break it into stages and then steps within those stages. Because when you're making a change, you're fighting a lot of things. Your unconscious mind, your neurology, like whatever you're doing presently is wired into your brain. So it takes a while to change that wiring, just physically. It just takes time. So, and if you're a highly distractible person, it's very, very difficult to do the same thing enough times to get your conscious mind's attention to go, oh, we're changing this. It's not just a one-off. So I talk a lot about willpower in my course, and how it's not what you want to rely on for making change. You really want to make everything as easy as possible for you to do. So you plan, and then you prep, and then you do the thing. So you get, you kind of take the steps backwards, and then go for the goal. And in my process, I recommend you celebrate at least once a week. If you can do it in the moment, that's even better. But at least once a week to go, look at the progress I've made. I did this, maybe it's 3 times out of 5. That's still great. That's 3 more times than you did before. And then the last part of the process is to review what you've done, how things have worked out, to continue to support the things that worked well, and adjust the things that didn't work out, but without any kind of criticism, because it's just not helpful. There's guilt and shame do not help you actually make progress. They frequently will derail you on your progress. So yeah, those are the extra steps, so that you don't get bored, and you don't get sort of disappointed of like, oh, I didn't make this huge leap. Well, you weren't looking to make a huge leap this week, but let's add up all your weeks. You've been doing this 3 weeks in a row. You're further than, you were much further along than you were when you started. The really cool thing about this, the framework that I teach, is that it's reusable. So once you learn how to do it for yourself, you can take that and apply it to a new thing. And the point of it is that it will become an automatic behavior that you don't have to decide to do. You don't have to rely on your focus or your motivation. It happens automatically. It becomes programmed in. And you can do that for self-care. You can do it for personal goals. You can do it for professional goals. Whatever is maybe taking more focus and energy than you want it to, you can program it in. So it stops taking the focus, it stops taking the energy, and it still gets done. That's the sort of magical part of it. So yeah, I saw somebody talking about ADHD, and they had just gotten diagnosed, and they'd gotten medication, and they said, this was really great, but I don't know what to point my new focus at, because I was just given medication. I wasn't given any kind of, skills or guidance on how to do that. So it makes a difference, whatever you're trying to do, if you build up the skills and get the resources, and the understanding of how ADHD brains are different, so that you can really make a difference for you, for your brain, not just, not everybody's not the average or the standard, but what really makes sense for you personally.
I wanted to ask you about you're also a TFT. So am I right? It's thought field therapy.
That's right.
So how did you come to that, and how does it connect? Does it connect with your system?
I found TFT completely by accident. A friend of the family found it because they were going through a really painful experience, and they found that someone to do TFT, and they had such a great result. They said, hey, is actually a man from the UK, said, hey, will you come from the UK to Michigan, where we live, and teach some classes and do some sessions and share about this, because it has been around since 1990 at least, and not many people know about it. So this friend asked my parents if they would host this man, Kevin Lay, because they had extra space in their room, or in their house. So my mom signed me up for a session. I had no idea what it was about. I had no idea what to expect, but I had been living with significant issues from PTSD. And I had tried all the standard stuff and just was still really struggling. And I went to my session, and 45 minutes later came out completely released from that trauma response that I had been going through for 20 years at that point. So he said, hey, I can teach you how to do this if we get enough people interested. And I said, sign me up. So he came back a few months later and did our training. And it's been almost 12 years now. So
awesome.
So I've been doing it ever since. So the connection is that I use TFT exercises, which are separate from a TFT sequence, but the exercises are really proactive, and anybody can do them. So I teach those exercises because they are a very good support to making change. So one, like the comfort shortcut, that just helps you in the moment feel better. There's an exercise called collarbone breathing that helps you kind of block stress from getting at you to start with. And there's another one that helps you focus, and they're all really quick and fast. And then there's another exercise that helps you reprogram your unconscious mind.
Awesome.
So I share all those in my community because I want everybody to have whatever tools they need and that resonate with them in order to make the change as easy as possible. And I found that once I was able to have my trauma symptoms and responses resolved, I then had the ability to even concentrate on making change afterwards. So I also offer people, private sessions for TFT if they have some kind of emotional baggage that they feel like is holding them back or is overwhelming and hasn't been resolved from a past experience.
It makes total sense to me, actually. I think that for the majority of women in business as well, in particular, there's a whole load of stuff, the overwhelm of ADHD comes in thick and fast for me often, but there's also often a trigger or an underlying thing. I have complex PTSD and trauma in my past as well, and I know those things have held me back in the past, and I've used various techniques, and I'm still learning others to help me move through those moments more effectively. And because we've all got huge gifts to share, but it can be hard to share those sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, and it's just life in general can be really difficult, and they say rain falls in every life, but with ADHD specifically, especially if you're undiagnosed and you've grown up that way, there tends to be a lot of criticism and a lot of correction and frustration and sometimes shame from our caregivers, our parents, our family, our teachers. It just really wasn't well known, and really nobody had good understanding and resources, especially for girls and women. So there's just like this whole pile of stuff that comes with being a late discovered ADHD in your life. You know, because of the ADHD experience. And it's much easier to be critical of yourself if you haven't had a chance to sort of resolve and get a better understanding of how those things have impacted you. So yeah.
So Jennifer, tell us, where are you based? How would people get in touch with you if they felt that it was, you know, what you've shared with us has resonated for them? So yeah, how would we all get in touch with you?
So I have a website that it's www.monarchdawn.com. So it's really easy. And I have a free chat. You can sign up and schedule, which I don't ever do a hard sell. It would really be just to ask any questions, and just get an idea of if I could be of help, and if not, what other resources I could offer, because I'm really determined and committed to support the ADHD community as much as possible. So there's that. And then the course that I teach is on the Circle platform, and it's called Custom Made Change. So if you go to circle.com and you look up Custom Made Change, you'll be able to find me there. And there's an open community that's totally free to join. And so that's another way to get in touch and check things out. And I do a live event once a month in there. So I can also do Q&A at that time.
Oh, brilliant. Jen, that sounds amazing. So just as we're wrapping up, actually, thank you for sharing all of those links with us and more about what you can help us with. What would be your final tips on goal setting then, before if you haven't shared them all already, but before we wrap up?
Yeah, the thing that I really try to emphasize, especially with the ADHD community, is persistence and grace.
Okay.
If this is something that's important to you, a personal goal, professional, doesn't matter. If it's important to you, then it's important. So don't give up on it. Be persistent with it, and give yourself grace. You might not have all the resources you need to make that change right away. That's okay. Take the time, get yourself in a position where you do have the resources, and then start making progress. But giving yourself grace every step along the way is fundamental, because our brains don't function well under criticism and stress. No one's brain does, but especially with ADHD, we tend to have big emotions and big reactions, and it's just not even, practically speaking, it's not helpful to be critical to yourself. And also, practically speaking, you are the only person that you have control over. So make sure you're saying nice things to yourself.
Oh, what a wonderful place to end the conversation. I really, really appreciate this, Jen. It's been lovely to chat with you and to find out more about what you do and how we can help ourselves set goals. So thank you for that. And for those of you who are watching, if you've enjoyed the conversation or have any questions, indeed, we would love to know. So please feel free to leave a comment. And of course, please give us a follow too. So as we wrap up, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from her.
Keep on being you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.